and welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Happy Tuesday. It's How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is it is a weekly video that I post. Each week I pick one card from the 78 card tarot, and for the first 20 minutes of the video we go ahead and discuss the symbolism in the card. And then after we're done talking about the card's meaning, you, the viewer, get to choose from one of 3 tarot decks, and we'll go ahead and do a quick read to see how that energy is currently manifesting in your life. If you ever want to jump straight to your reading, the timestamps are always in the description box below, and I'll go ahead and get started. Today we have a very special card. We had started with the wand suit, and we have now gotten into the court cards. Last week we talked about the Page of Wands, and today we get to talk about the first knight of the suits. And oh boy, is he not the first knight. We are talking about the Knight of Wands. And the Knight of Wands, with the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, you'll see that the Knight of Wands is a very charismatic character. You see a knight fully clad in armor. He has plumage on his helmet that almost looks like flames. He is wearing the colors, gold colors, and with little salamanders all around it, right? And his horse is a very brownish red color, and he's rearing up on his back legs, right? Which just seems like he's just raring to go. In the background, you see what looks like kind of like a desert or Egyptian scene, and you see that the knight is very intent. He's looking straight ahead, and he has, his rod in hand. So what you see here is that the Knight of Wands is, again, he is the Knight of Fire, right? He is a dynamic character. A lot of card readers, all card readers have like a special kind of little part in our heart for the Knight of Wands because similar to, the Knight of Cups, the Knight of Wands is when you get into the knights are doers, right? They go on missions. They're older than a page, but not as mature as a king or queen. And so when you start seeing their energy, I always think of knights as a very young adult energy, like being in your 20s, right? Kind of having all of those new to life where you're old enough to actually experience things, but you're young enough to make mistakes, right? And there's just so much more action. All 4 of the knights are on horseback, so you just see them really going places, like, quite literally. But the Knight of Wands really is, first and foremost, he is a charismatic knight. You can see with all the flames, you can see that his cloak looks like flames, the plumage looks like flames, even the horse's hair looks like flames. So this guy is going places with his hair on fire, right? And so with that, he's definitely the most physically active and also tends to be the most physically attractive. Now, the Knight of Wands, again, with it being the fire element, it really does play into astrology with like the elements of Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. And I was actually thinking about this today. Today the moon is in Aries, and it's amazing how when the moon is in Aries, you can feel the energy. It's almost like an emotional kind of fire. Everybody's in a rush to go. People want things done fast. I notice my day seems to go by in a flash. But the other thing that I was thinking about is that the way that, Aries energy or Sagittarian energy and Leo, they're very direct, and they're honest to a fault. And that's really how the Wands energy goes, especially with the Knight. This is someone who really is a go-getter. He states what he wants, but he does it in almost with a wink and a smile, right? It's almost kind of endearing how blunt he is. And what it is that, he exudes this kind of allure of confidence. And that's one of those things with the Wands being activity and spirituality, right? This is definitely the knight who likes to experience things. It's kind of that personality that feels like life is short, right? That would probably be a mantra, which is, let me experience everything that there is to experience. It is very much, kind of like a graduation of the page. It's kind of jumping in head first. It really is kind of taking brash action. A lot of times it can be, act first and think later. But in that same vein, it's also very exciting, the type of energy, because you're forging ahead. You're like running forward full speed. Now, the thing with the Knight of Wands is that he has a very can-do attitude. Much like the page, he gets excited about things, but you do have a little bit of an air of maturity, a slight air of maturity. Definitely not quite to the king yet. But what it is that there is something very alluring about that sense that you want to experience everything that life has to offer, right? You don't want to waste anything. You don't want to waste any moment of anything. And so that's definitely what I see when I see the knight. So a lot of times, it's that kind of confidence that you have when you don't sweat the details. You just kind of forge in, you jump, you go. A lot of times it is that energy, like it's definitely that energy of, going. It is almost like a sportsmanship kind of energy too. You do see a lot of athletes, if someone's a teenager or in college, and they play sports, you would see them probably manifest as a Knight of Wands. A lot of times it can be a leader in your social group too. And again, you can be a man or a woman manifesting as the Knight of Wands. But it's definitely the leader of the pack. And if you remember that old 50s song where you go leader of the pack and then you hear the revving of the motorcycle, it's kind of like that. It's definitely rebel without a cause. The one thing about the knight's confidence is that he really doesn't care what people think about him, right? Or at least he exudes that confidence. It's like, again, similar to the page, but just kind of like a higher octave. It's almost like, you've had a few real world experiences, but you're still going out there and doing whatever it is that you want to do. Now, with having the armor on, it definitely means that he's probably, he's probably taken a few dings. But the other thing about the armor is almost like, with the Knight of Wands, it's almost like he puts the armor on so he can do more, right? It isn't that he's afraid of getting hurt. That's the other thing about Wands energy. That's the other thing about fire energy, is that they don't really care about getting hurt too much. Everything kind of rolls off them. That was the other thing about the moon being in Aries today. It's like people get real blunt. And it's funny, a lot of times if you're a more sensitive person, talking that way can kind of hurt your feelings. But that's the great thing about fire signs, and especially like the Knight of Wands. This is the person that you could probably look them in the face and be like, you're being a jackass. And they'd be like, oh, okay. But you still like me though, right? It's kind of like that attitude. It definitely, they do have a temper. The Knight of Wands, just like any of the other suits, when we get more into the negative of it, we'll talk about the temper part of it. Again, also being, having a high energy drive does also make them a little bit of a hothead. Most of the time, it's any time their ego is slighted, or especially if you're a Leo. Either that, or if you just didn't get what you wanted, or if you didn't get what you wanted fast enough, or you felt like, the other thing is, a lot of times with the Knight of Wands, it's feeling like you didn't get away with what you wanted is more the thing. Now, we're going to go ahead and get, while we're on the Rider-Waite-Smith, the first deck is always the Rider-Waite-Smith, by the way. The other two decks are selected based on, the interpretation of the card. But one of the most common interpretations, and it is very classically known, is that when you see the Knight of Wands, there's only two knights in the entire tarot that are really known as being the Lotharios, right? Being the ladies' man, being the ones who will smooth, relationships. And again, you can be a woman in this too. It just basically means that you're good with the opposite sex, right? And again, the wands being a phallic symbol, the Knight of Wands is definitely a number one for being a schmoozer. He knows what to say. He knows how to say it. A lot of times he might be that guy who's like throwing out the cheesy, pickup lines, but he almost does it in a way to kind of get your reaction, because again, it's all physical, right? I'm taking action, so what's your response, right? Am I getting what I want? But the other thing is that, that confidence, and everyone is attracted to confidence. That's very attractive, right? But that confidence definitely wins you a lot of attention. And that is one thing that this night, more so than the Knight of Cups. And the Knight of Cups, because when you think about it, okay, a doer in action and then a doer with emotions, cups, wands, those are the two that you would probably have trouble with in the romantic field, right? On the romantic playing field. But in his defense, it's like, again, they go out to experience life. They want to experience as much life as possible. But the downside of it is sometimes it's their experience that they care about. They don't really care about your experience. And you play with fire, you might get burned, right? The other thing is that they're real quick, right? So the other thing about the Nine of Wands is, and the fact that many of the other knights, like when you look at the Knight of Pentacles, all four hooves of his horse are on the ground. And even with the Knight of Cups, I believe 3 of the horse's feet are on the ground and 1 hoof is up. But the Knight of Wands, he has 2 feet on the ground and 2 feet reared up. That horse is ready to run forward. And what that typically means is that, and the definition most tarot readers give it is that he's in and out. He's in and out. Because he's an action person. If he's excited by you in that moment, then you are the bee's knees, right? But if you're not the next it thing, you could lose your allure and then he's on to the next thing. And the in and out really does play into the surge of fire too. It's like, okay, maybe I'm attracted to you right now, but I'm not. And then the other thing about it is that sometimes it can be that, look, there's a squirrel, or look, there's a prettier girl. So that's the other thing too, because with all that confidence comes the need to be the best, which is a fire concept. It's a fire thing. And when you want the best, you will want the best in the counterpart. And definitely it leads them astray. It doesn't always work out in their favor because the grass isn't always greener. But that's why the knight gets such a reputation as being, the player. He is definitely known as being the player. And, like we said in the beginning, he's holding his stick. So that's his main priority sometimes. Now, the other side of this too is that he boldly goes where he wants to go. He makes no apologies for where he's going. So a lot of times, when you think about that, it is a little bit, that's the reason that so many people, again, when you get around a fire sign, and I bet you know it, if you know a fire sign, you kind of have an understanding of the element. It's almost like you can't be mad at them for being restless. It's almost their inherent nature. But definitely, fire is fire. It burns people. And sometimes they don't, always think about how others are feeling. It's about their experience. But on the good side is that these folks love to travel. They're good travelers. They're very well read. They're explorers. They probably know things about places that you never would imagine, and it's always fun to talk to them. It's always fun to travel with them. Honestly, if you keep a Knight of Wands in your friendship group, is probably the best way to deal, is because they really light people up with their energy. It's like getting a jolt of excitement when you're around them. And again, they do. They have the armor. They know, and they can almost share with you their experiences in the safe way. But they're very easily roused to action. But one other thing about the fire suit, and especially if you're Leo, they are very loyal, especially if you're a Leo. So a lot of times I like to look at this card, if you see it next to something like the Hierophant. The other thing about the Knight of Wands is that the loyalty extends more to their beliefs, right? Because Wands is not only action, but it's spirituality. So, and it does really mean, it does seem to pertain to Sagittarius quite a lot, which is very spiritual, the very higher understanding of things. But they are loyal to what they believe, right? And their beliefs are always evolving. So in that vein, they are quick to take a vocal stand if they don't believe in something. They're very good about what they believe in. And in that sense, when it's a person, it can be someone who acts quickly and decisively. It can be someone who's an advocate for others. It can be, very fun-loving people who are the life of the party, or, the spontaneous ones. And it is a lot of times the leader of the group, especially if you're younger. Now, the second card, oh my gosh, I've been talking forever about how I was going to how to tarot with this card, is that the second card is the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. And I absolutely love her her vision of the Knight of Wands, because you see, and it's interesting, throughout her entire deck, the pages are children. The Page of Wands, the pages are children. And the other knights are in their early 20s, right? The other knights in her deck are in their early 20s. The only knight that's in this deck that's older is the Knight of Wands. And I smile because what it means is that the Knight of Wands is that adventurer. He's, I think of Easy Rider, because you see all these warm colors, and you see the salamander on his bike and him holding what looks like a walking staff. You have a desert scene, a desert road. And with that energy, it really is like a lot of Knight of Wands energy doesn't have to mean chronologically young. A lot of times you see the Knight of Wands with those eternal bachelors, right? You see it's a card that comes up with a lot of rock stars, right? You think Easy Rider, you think someone who hasn't grown up, someone who really has, kept their vitality throughout their whole life. I really smile with this card too, because this picture really does look like my uncle. He has a long gray beard and he drives motorcycles, and it's funny, when I think of him, I do think more of a King of Wands, because he's a very responsible person. He's learned a lot in his life, and he's a wonderful father. But what I think is great is that the meaning, the way that it means the Knight of Wands, is that you never lose what you are, right? Which is a Wands concept. Who you are, your sense of self is grounded. Sometimes when I see the Knight of Wands, I feel like my teenage self again, right? Sometimes it's telling you to get into that energy. Who are you, right? Who are you at your core? Stay true to that. Never deviate from that. And it's funny. I'm older, but I always loved rollerblading when I was a teenager, and and I bought some new rollerblades, and that's the kind of thing that you see here. Don't ever give up what you love. Stay true to what you love. Stay true to your passions, right? And but it is definitely kind of a sign of in this depiction as well, it usually means somebody at any age who just won't give up their individuality, right? If they want to be single for the rest of their life, they'll be single for the rest of their life. If they decide to get married and have kids, they'll do that, but they're not going to sacrifice who they are in order to have both. They can be both, right? And so I thought that was a beautiful depiction of the Knight of Wands. Now, the last deck I went with is the Spacious Tarot, and I always thought this was so great because, as you can see, salamanders are a very big depiction in the wand suit. With the traditional Rider Waite, salamanders are on the Queen's throne, on the King's cloak, and especially on with the Knight and the Page. And so you see the salamander everywhere. And what it is the salamander is, I think, the salamander is a lizard that's adaptable to a dry climate, and he knows how to go fast, and he's spry, and he's lively, right? There's a versatility and an endurance about the salamander that just makes him seem like, because you would think, okay, such a powerful suit, why would a little lizard be so, why not a lion or something? But the salamander, when you look at it, is really kind of a perfect, embodiment. They survive, and they adapt, and they grow, right? And they're just kind of that dry, fiery type of element when you look at them. And I thought it was great because it's the magic wands. All of the wands are magic wands. And just like the magician, that really is kind of the wand suit. The wand suits are very creative. That's the other thing, is that a Knight of Wands is someone who's very unabashedly creative. So, when you see the Knight of Wands, again, you could be a woman or a man, but I also kind of think, what I think of? I always think of those artists, those really avant-garde artists, like maybe you spray paint graffiti art. Sorry. Oh, gosh. Yep, that's our Knight of Wands right there. But, maybe you do graffiti art, or maybe you do something that's really outside of the box. It really is that kind of full speed ahead energy. It's like, the one thing I think of is it's defying the status quo. That's the other thing, too. It's daring to be different, right? And that's definitely a Knight of Wands energy. Now, when you look at it, one other thing is, before we go into the reversal, is that when you see it in an environmental sense, like situational question, the Knight of Wands is really about clearing the air. A lot of times it can mean that someone's coming at you, rod raised, but a lot of times it could mean, when you see it in a situational sense, it can mean that your friend is about to invite you out on a around the world trip. It can mean that someone's coming at you to clear the air. That's one big thing. It could mean that you have a lot of new projects that you're really excited. You're just ready to roar into them. Sometimes it can mean that you're taking risks at work, or you're daring to do something new and different. It can also mean that it could also be telling you that that's the energy that you should be embodying, right? Maybe it's telling you to, recapture your essence. Maybe you need to, the other thing I love about this card too is that, if you've ever just gone for a drive, there's a great line in the Pixar movie Cars that talks about that, where she goes, haven't you just ever gone for a drive, right? Sometimes when you get so cooped up, or you've been doing the same routine too much, a lot of times you have to break out of that. And actually that's a psychological concept too. When you take the same route home, if you drive the same way, if you do the same routine every day, the synapses in your brain get too conditioned to that same pattern. In order to be alive, to feel alive, you have to do new things in order to keep things active, right? So it is a matter of just just one little thing different. But definitely when it's the Knight of Wands, one little thing different might be the Page of Wands. Something radically different, like, I said the last video, one time my sister and I jumped in the car and we went to Key West, and it was the greatest trip ever. It's something impulsive like that. And it's not telling you that you have to do something that big, but it's telling you that to light that spark in your soul, that's the kind of Knight of Wands energy. It's like I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight, but let's go, right? That's kind of like, it is definitely that feeling. Now, when you see the Knight of Wands in reverse, oh my gosh, it is quite anytime you see a card in the reverse, it's either the exaggerated expression or it's the repressed expression of that card. And we'll start with the exaggeration of it, because honestly, the most wands, when they're in reverse, it's almost like that flame is burning out of control, right? It's almost like it's too much. And when you see the Knight of Wands in reverse, it usually means someone who's a little bit of a peacock, right? It's someone who cares about their appearance a lot. It can be a thing of all show and no tell, right? You're not walking the talk, right? A lot of times it can mean someone who really thinks they're all that and is trying to play up that image. The other thing is that it can be someone who's a little superficial that way. It can be, unfortunately, when I see the Knight and the Wands in reverse, I really think of those real kind of people who are real flashy with their money. Like they want attention for like almost the negative reasons. They want to show that they're the best, right? It is a little bit of a showboating kind of thing. The other thing is that's a little scary about it is that it can be someone who's really thoughtless and insensitive, right? It can be someone who's taking action in order to get a response, but it's negative. The other thing is that it can be someone who avoids, like, unfortunately, just like the Knight of Wands in upright can be the real charmer and someone who wants to experience a lot of relationships. And again, if you see the Knight next to the Seven of Cups, oh my God, you might want to run the other direction. No, I you know me, I'm sorry. There are no bad cards. Please don't read it that way. Sometimes it can literally just be that, actually that combination, I might think that it's someone who has a lot of lust for life, but just might not know which direction to go, right? That's someone who's, which way do I go, George? But the Knight in reverse definitely it would be more of a runner type dynamic. If you've heard the psychology of a runner chaser, the Knight in the upright, the Knight in reverse particularly would be someone who might be a commitment phobe. Someone who avoids deep commitments, or it would really be someone who in reverse would be someone who doesn't want to take responsibility for their actions, right? Someone who avoids. That would be it really is kind of the quintessential unreliable person, right? It would be someone that really doesn't come through at all, who's all talk and no walk. Now, the other thing is that it is a lot of times when the card's in reverse, it's someone who overestimates their abilities. They can be a real braggart. I know the page is a braggart, but this is almost like in a very flamboyant kind of way. They can be kind of reckless and rash, almost to the point where they might even endanger others, right? You might get into trouble, might get into fights. You might damage things, and while you're being the life of the party, you might get too rowdy. The other thing is that it's a little bit of a daredevil, someone who can't be still, who can't. This would really be sometimes, and unfortunately, it can be someone who might have such a rambunctious temperament that it might be hard for them to keep stable work because they get into fights with people. If you saw the Knight in reverse next to maybe the Five of Wands, that would be, kind of that type of that perception. The other thing is that, sometimes it can be a sign of a little bit of anxiety too. It's just someone who has to go all the time. It can be a sign of someone who has attention deficit disorder. Like really, they can't slow down, can't turn your mind off, can't stop and enjoy the moment. It is kind of the person who needs constant stimulation. In the superficial range of it too, sometimes it can be someone who needs constant entertainment. I can honestly say that if you do see the Knight of Wands in reverse, it could be that drama friend. You know what I mean? Like the friend who has to start drama because they want to entertain themselves. It's like they'll stir up a fight in order just to have some kind of activity going on, right? Now, the other thing is that, they can be the person who lashes out when they get upset. The other thing is that it can be, and especially with this depiction, it can be the person who never settles down, like the perpetual playboy, like the Hugh Hefner type of guys. It can be the guy who just wants to party forever, who has no intention of getting married. You really would see that if it could be a bachelor who's in his 40s, 50s, well into 70s. In the same vein, it can be, and again with the honesty of the card, because I don't want to, trash talk it too much. The Knight of Wands is actually quite a nice energy, and that's, there is almost a duality with it, because when you see it, even when it's in the reverse, it is. You know that this person is trouble, right? Kind of like that song, I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In. You know this person could run you off a cliff, right? but it's almost exciting to have that thrill. The other thing is that that type of spark for life is rare, right? You don't see that many people who know what they want and go after it and don't make any apologies for it. So that's also why, a lot of times it's, fire people, let it, what you say, roll off them, and a lot of times you do the same in turn, because it is how they are, right? It's just how they are. Now, the other thing is that it's, the one other thing I wanted to say about the wands in reverse is that I do kind of think of the Wile E. Coyote effect, where a lot of times with It's the Night in Reverse, they tend to do the same thing over and over and over again and never learn the lesson, right? They end up falling off the cliff. And so sometimes it can be a child, sometimes the knight can be a teenager, and I have a few Sagittarians in my life that we've had moments like that where you just know they're having a Wile E. Coyote moment. They're all riled up, they're heading right for the cliff, and there's no sense standing in front of them, right? All you can do is let them run by, do the Acme, outline at the bottom of the canyon, and then when they regenerate, hope that the lesson knock some sense into them. So that is a lot of the times the wands in reverse as well. But on a more suppressed level, sometimes it can be someone who's lacking that type of energy. It can be someone who is who's not real good with the ladies. Like, again, it could be someone who wants to be good, but, wants to be the smooth talker, but always seems to fall flat. It can be a little bit of a wannabe, like somebody who might be trying to impersonate someone else, or trying to be like the big boys, but not quite coming across. It can be someone who is, more argumentative, but in that same sense, it can also, as one last definition, it can be someone who's a little bit trapped in that lifestyle too. Being alone all the time is not always the easiest road. So sometimes it can be someone who's a little bit trapped by their own indulgences. If you saw this next to something like the Devil card, it's the endless wanderer, right? It's the person, how many times did Wile E. Coyote actually catch the roadrunner, right? So sometimes the wands in reverse can be you watching someone who journeys and journeys and journeys and just doesn't seem to reach their goal. But a lot of times, both the in upright and the reverse, the Knight of Wands is such a generous energy. They really are warm. They're the travelers, they're the go-getters, they're the ones who traverse the globe and come back again with all these wonderful tales and stories to tell. And again, that type of energy, either in your own life or to observe it with someone else, is pretty darn amazing. But all right, so I know to talk a little bit longer for this one, but I'm going to go ahead and freeze frame and let you choose your deck. The first deck is always the Rider-Waite-Smith. The second is with it is the Sunstone. The second deck is the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant, and with it you have a Bloodstone. And the third deck is the Spacious Tarot, and with it we have an Aquamarine. So I'll give you a minute. Please choose from your intuition, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we're back. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll move up our decks. But I was actually kind of excited to do this. Again, it's been kind of a long week, but so deck number one, how does the traditional Knight of Wands manifest in your life? Let's see. Oh, we saw this, right? Oh my God. I think that's your card. And then, okay, we'll go ahead. Oh my God. Please clarify. I knew I was going to be getting some people. Oh my, holy crap. Lord, pile number 1. You got 3 Knights. All right. Whew, let me breathe. Okay. How does this end? I don't know how this ends. The middle is so darn. Good Lord. This has got to be a group of friends. Are you a guy? Are you a girl with like a posse or like a badass posse? All right. Let's see. All right, here I'm clearing my thoughts. Sorry. I knew I was gonna get animated with this card. All right. And the deck. Okay. Where is this going, please? Okay, please clarify. Oh, guys. The gang is all here. You got all 4 Knights. Okay, I'm just gonna let you see. You got all 4 Knights. Holy Toledo. All right, I'm gonna have to pull out our blocks in a minute, but all right. Whew, I'm sorry. I've never seen that before. I've done tarot forever, and I've never gotten all 4 Knights in the spread. So, wow. So, first off, I am almost getting a vibe like this is you. And you can be a man or woman watching this. I'm getting a vibe like this is you. And I see that you might be a young adult energy. You might be in your early 20s. But I'm really getting the sense that it's almost like in the past, you got 1 major arcana in this whole spread, and you got strength. You got strength, right? And the thing about strength is it's about taming your inner desires, right? It's about taming your inner desires. And you see this sweet, virginal woman, the Virgin. It's like Virgo and Leo. And it is a Leo card, by the way. So you could be a Leo sun sign or have some kind of predisposed, like have a stellium in your chart of this. But basically, in the past, you've exuded a lot of strength. And whether that was in your life or just in your circumstances, you want to tame, you want to keep in check your inner passions, and you want to channel that energy. You want to make it like a laser beam to get your goals achieved, right? And so what's happening is you got the Knight of Wands, and because what I'm really seeing is that this, I'll read it kind of both ways, but I'm really getting a sense like this is all your own energy. It's almost like the 4 points, right? It's the 4 points. It's the 4 fixed elements. You got fire, you got water, you got air, you got earth. And I think what you're doing is that I think you really want to forge ahead. What I'm kind of seeing here too is because the other thing is that all of the Knights are positioned. Like the Knight of Wands is facing this way. The Knight of Air is facing that way, right? The elements that coincide with each other face the same direction. But and remember how we were talking about the horse's feet being on the ground. Remember how we said the Knight of Cups. To be honest, I really just get the feeling like if I had to read it, I think in the past, I think you're a predominantly very energetic person. I think you're a go-getter. You go after the things in life that you want. Now, I think that in the past, the 2 horses that are facing towards strength are your mental and your energy, right? It's almost like your passion and your mouth are facing towards strength. And then your emotions and your practical side are facing towards the future. I really get the feeling like I do think that you're a young adult person. I think either that or you feel like that. Like you feel like you're in your early 20s. You feel like you're in the thick of life right now, right? You're not a child, but you're not an adult yet. And you feel like you're learning all of these things. I think in the past, you've learned a lot about your own mental capacity. And I almost get this feeling as if you've really, really developed your passion and your mental facilities. I think you're very, very smart. I almost get a feeling like you overthink things. It's almost like you overanalyze. The other thing is that I also think that maybe um, you might struggle to keep your mouth in check, and it isn't a bad thing. I don't mean that in like a mean way. I just think that you feel so passionately about things, and you are a very articulate person, and you see how both of these knights are the ones who are like running in, right? They, especially the Knight of Swords. But I think I think the areas in your life that you're a little bit more developed is your sense of drive and your sense of understanding. I think you're a very smart person. And it's almost like I feel like you're almost overdeveloped in those two elements, and what you're doing is you're kind of keeping those in check. Like you're not holding them down, but you're almost, that you're overdeveloped in those two areas. And what you want to do is you almost want to check the mental and the passion in order for you to move forward emotionally and physically. I can see that your biggest goal right now, because again, you don't want to go backwards, you want to go forwards, right? Your biggest goal is, what the other thing that I get is with the cup being here and the Knight of Cups. I think you almost want to balance yourself. I think you really feel like you have all of these things within yourself, and you want to control it, right? You want to control it. You want to go forward fast, but it's almost as if you're developing you want to develop some kind of emotional maturity so you can prosper financially. It is entirely possible that maybe you've been, again, with the two nights of talking and action being faced towards the past and being facing towards strength. I do think that maybe in the past, maybe you had opportunities um, get away from you from either something you said or in a way that you behaved. I don't think you behaved badly, but I think that maybe, if anything, maybe you moved too fast. Maybe you didn't stay in a job that you really wanted, that you should have, or I'm really kind of getting a vibe like of if I had stuck that out, I would be in a different place now, and you almost kind of regret that. It's almost like you're trying to tame your impulses, but you are a very heavy thinker and you're a very quick thinker, but you really do want to tame that and get to an emotional balance so you can move forward to the future. But I definitely see in the future your goal and where you want to go is you want to get better with money. You want to be very financially stable. But I do almost get the feeling as if you have to get all of these elements on the same page, and these are four different, all of these knights are on horsebacks, right? And they're all going different directions at different speeds, right? You got one horse that's absolutely galloping. You got one that's rearing up. You got one that's taking its sweet time. And then, of course, classically, our Knight of Pentacles, he's our good old slowpoke. His horse's feet is always on the ground. He's the slowest moving knight. But I do think that what it is that I am getting a little bit of a been there, done that kind of feeling, but I do think it's something that you struggle with every day, and you are trying to be emotionally, you're going on an emotional journey, right? You're going on an emotional journey, and you're willing to learn, right? Like you're willing to downgrade to a page if it will if it'll let you become a Knight of Pentacles. I think you really do want to be financially stable, and whatever you have to do, however you need to tame yourself, you're eager and ready, and all of these are action cards. It's so much action. But I do see that you want some stability in your life. I think you're looking forward to emotional and physical stability, and you're willing to tame your more wild side, your more, and your own rampant thoughts. Also, with the Knight of Swords, I kind of get the feeling with the Knight of Cups being above the swords, I'm getting this feeling as if you almost have to check your mouth. Like you know how we said sometimes the Knight of Wands, when you're in a work situation, sometimes you can be a little too blunt or a little too impulsive. I think you're almost going on a journey and learning how to kind of temper your mouth, temper your thoughts, not always say, don't let the first thing that comes through your mind come out your mouth, is kind of the vibe. And I think you really want that to bring you more fiscal abundance and more stability in the future. And you want to slow down. It's almost like I feel like you want to perfect all of these nights. You want to be all of the knights, but you're all of these knights are on the same mission. But the future looks really good. First off, you got the page, which is really like a beginning, right? You're learning, and you will end up going in the direction of the knight. Now, just one other quick interpretation, and then we'll go on to the next deck. But this can be a group of friends. It can be a group of friends, like maybe, again, if you have a posse of people, but again, if it is a group of people, it is almost like, I do think that if you are in school or if you're in a group right now, maybe it has been a time of graduation for a lot of people. Maybe it's just your gang that you hang out with, and this is just, I'm almost getting 3 people here and then moving into the future, but it can be, you do see a lot of foursomes that are, groups of 4 people that I always think represent the elements. Like if you ever watch these TV shows where they have 4 friends, right? And it seems like one friend is the outgoing, wands person, one's the real sensitive water person, the other person's the real verbal air, and then one person's the real practical earth, There's a lot of TV shows that you can kind of match it up. A lot of cartoons, too. It's funny, any cartoon that has 4 characters, you can kind of pick out what element they are. But, wow, guys, I'm in awe of that. I swear to you, I've been throwing cards a long time. I've never seen all 4 knights come out in one deck. Wow, that's really wild. So, all right, so deck number 1. That's how the Knight of Wands manifests in your life. That's pretty darn amazing. All right, so deck number 2, the Slow Tarot. Let's go ahead and see. Again, I love this knight. He does really remind me of my uncle. I get a real warm, but yet adventurous, And it's true. My uncle does. He rides Harleys. He's a Harley rider, and oh gosh, I would love to go ahead and try my hand at that. That's on my bucket list. To learn how to ride a bike. All right, so deck number 2. How does the Knight of Wands manifest in your life? How does the Knight of Wands? Ooh. Okay, I'm noting the bottom card, but okay. Sorry. How does the Knight of Wands? Oh, there we go. Okay. Presently. And then the future. Wow. Oh, that's awesome, guys. You have a lot of cards here already. I'm tempted to kind of, let me just see. Okay, here, please clarify. Ooh, this one wanted to pop out earlier, so that makes sense. Okay. All right, guys. So Knight of Wands, deck number 2. All right, you got quite a story here. Your past, these two cards really flipped out like this, so it seemed like a block, right? I take it as a block. So, what's happening is, to be honest, one other definition about the Knight of Wands is really kind of defying expectation. You don't like labels, right? You are a rebel without a cause. And what I see is that in the past we've got, and please don't be alarmed, there's no bad cards in tarot, but the slow tarot, the Ten of Swords is a little bit more of a graphic one. But you got the Ten of Swords and you got the Hierophant. And what it is that the Hierophant is, it's about the status quo, but it is a lot about beliefs, right? It's about what you believe. It's also about what you are loyal to, like when you're loyal to your beliefs, like when you stick to what you know to be true, what you, because you know, again, what you know to be true, what you believe to be true in your heart of hearts. And that can be religion, that can be social groups, it can be, your upbringing, your environment. And what came as a block, or what, crossed it, is that you got the Ten of Coins. And just for the record, this is a very family-based read. I'm getting a very strong, because the other thing is that the World card that wanted to come out is a tree, and it's in Lenormand, trees talk a lot about family trees, talks about lineage, talks about roots. And the Knight of Wands here has clearly got no roots, not in a bad way, but he is his own roots. He knows who he is, right? He takes his home with him in the knapsack on his back. But here we've got the Ten of Pentacles, which shows a picture of a family. Now this is a little bit of a different deck, because this is the only deck that I've ever seen. I've seen a depiction of a clock before, but there's kind of a snake in the background. Now the other deck you got Atonement, right? Now, really, what I'm kind of feeling is that with the Atonement card, I am kind of getting the feeling, and you got 3 tens here, by the way, and the World is like a conclusion. It's the World is like the ending of a cycle. The tens are the end of a cycle. But I really get the feeling, especially with these cards blocking the Hierophant, I feel like you almost had in the past, you had some kind of obligation to your family. I feel like a lot of what you believed, or maybe it is possible that maybe something that you were taught really wasn't what you believed in your heart of hearts. Maybe you did kind of go along with the status quo, but it kind of killed you inside, not in a graphic way, but you know how anytime you're not true to yourself, or you don't have the ability to be true to yourself, right? Maybe, if you try to rebel, it would threaten your safety. Because that's the other thing, is that the Ten of Pentacles is about having a secure family life. It's very stable. It's about having enough money. It's about having everything that you need. But, the other thing that I kind of get from this is that maybe you were very loyal to the status quo, but it never served you. For all of your loyalty, you still kind of got stabbed in the back, or you got, despite conforming. I am kind of getting that vibe, even though I think in your younger years, you may have really conformed for a long time because it was expected of you, but it really worked against you, right? It pinned you down. That's the other thing about the swords. I know it's always such a graphic card, but the other thing that it means is it means being pinned down, because you have 10 swords that pin you down, right? And I am kind of looking at the background of this, that it does kind of look like, like pillars, like a fence, right? But beliefs are never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. It's the structure of your upbringing. It's the structure of your life. And honestly, I'm a true believer that if you did not, it's impossible for you to just grow up and immediately just plop into your core beliefs just like they drop out of the sky, right? It takes I do think that it takes learning, experiencing different religions, maybe experiencing. I think our family upbringing really forges us, right? And I don't think that there was anything harmful about this, because again, the Ten of Swords is a little bit of a scary card, but I'm not really getting so much of a betrayal by this. I'm seeing more of an expectation, right? I think that again, it was like an atonement to your family. Either that, or again, when I see atonement, it's almost like something that you need to do to make things right, right? And so I think of you doing what you need to do to serve your beliefs, even though you feel like those beliefs might be pinning you down. But you might do it because it's a family belief or it's a family tradition, right? But you possibly didn't feel very free in it, and that would be kind of your early life. Now, your current life and where you are now is you got the Ten of Cups. And gosh, guys, I always say the Ten of Cups, you see the two children running in the lawn, over the lawn, and you've got roses, and you got, two people watching on. I think that presently, I always say the Ten of Cups is that happiness that money can't buy, right? It's the happiness that money can't buy. Now, the other thing that I'm kind of seeing here is that maybe you did, maybe it was some kind of family tradition that you grew up in, but I do see that maybe your family kind of understood how you are. They supported you in doing your own thing. Because the other thing that I'm seeing is that, with atonement, she's feeding the food to the ducks, right? Which is not normally what you do, right? You don't normally just, the lunch is for you, right? So I do think that maybe you tried, you maybe tried to be, of a certain belief system to please your family, but as you grew up, they realized, okay, this is not him or not her, right? This is not how they are. They need to be free. And I do think that, again, I think you hit a point where you realized who you were. And I think currently you are, again, very happy. I think you're being very authentic. I think right now you are living the life that you want to live, right? And you're kind of you're casting off any stigmas, right? You're saying, okay, if I don't, I decide who I am. I know who I am, right? And I think you're living that life. Again, I love this card. He's probably my most favorite Knight of Wands because he's life is a highway, right? Just, I heard that on the radio the other day, actually. The Life is a Highway, and gosh, it's such an energetic song. But, I'm going to ride it all night long. I think you go where the wind blows, right? You go where you are called to go. And I think it makes you very happy. I think that's, I don't even think, your sense of home, your sense of happiness, what gives you that thrill is doing you, right? And I think I am also getting a vibe that it might have taken you a little bit of time to get to that point, right? Him being an older person, but still being in that youthful energy. Also, something about the atonement too. Have you ever had those times in life where, again, you can be any age? You can be any age. One of my favorite astrologers, Donna Cunningham, she's like, I discovered astrology at 53 years of age. She's like, I thought I was close to retirement, And then she went on for another 20 years doing something that she was very passionate about. And I feel like it's one of those things. Age is nothing but a number. It doesn't matter what age you are. There are wonderful biographies about people doing amazing things in their 70s, in their 80s. There's no set time to do anything. Life is a plate, right? And you can have your dessert first. You can eat your vegetables last. You can do whatever you choose to do. And I think that maybe you did kind of finally discover yourself, maybe at more of a midpoint. But I do think that you're very happy right now. Again, that's that happiness that money can't buy. I think you know where you want to be, and it might have taken some struggle. The only other thing is that I do think that maybe you might have had a few beliefs that you might have felt a little betrayed by, not in a bad way, but maybe you just really put your heart and soul into them, and then later, you know how it happens sometimes, a flip will switch and something will change, and you just see something from a new perspective, and then you just think, well, that's just not what I believe anymore. And it's not bad or good, and it does not have to be a religion either. Sometimes it can just be like, again, one of my favorite authors, her name is Janet Lairs, and she wrote a great book called The Simple Living Guide. And she was a lawyer living in a metropolitan city for a really long time, and then one day the switch flipped, right? And she wanted to live simply. She did not want to continue. She wanted more time for her kids. She didn't want as much waste in her life. And she completely did a 180. And that's the kind of thing that I'm seeing here, that maybe, there was something that, was really ingrained that you chose to change. And you followed your livelihood, But the other thing that I get also with the 10 of coins and the atonement is that I don't think that you walked away from anyone to do this. I think you were very honest, and I do think that you had the support of your family. I do think you had the support of your family. You might have a few people who don't understand, or you might, secretly have that nickname of, yeah, that's Shelly. She's the crazy one, right? I get that a little bit too, not in a bad way. My family knows me. They know they love you for you, right? They might know that you're a little eccentric, that you might get that word thrown away around a little bit. But moving forward, wow, guys, you got a pretty amazing future. I was giggling because you got the Ace of Wands. Wow, guys, you got the Ace of Wands. The world is really kind of your oyster. But and then to clarify, we got the Two of Pentacles, right? I almost think that you have really discovered yourself. And I really get the feeling like your future is like you're looking for a new beginning. I am almost getting this vibe like maybe you've owned a motorhome for 20 years and you're like, should I sell all this and build a shack in, Key West? I just feel like you're looking forward to your next adventure, right? You're looking forward to your next adventure, and you're kind of deciding how you're going to weigh it out, right? Like, I'm almost getting a vibe like, if you are in school, this could be, where am I going next? Am I going to do college, or am I going to work for a little while? Do I want to, I know none of us are really traveling much, but, all of the yellow in her shirt and the number 8, I really do think that you're weighing your options. The other thing that I kind of get with this too is that we talked about how the Knight is kind of in and out. He's a little bit of an up and down guy. Like one minute it's like, hey, let me shave all my hair off, and then the next minute he's like, let me grow my beard down to my knees. I think that's kind of what you're doing, but you're doing it in that exciting Knight of Wands way. You're really looking ahead and saying, okay, what's my next big adventure? But I do think that you're very presently happy right now. I do almost get this like a retirement vibe. Not again, you could be younger, you could be in a younger energy, but I just think you're really thinking about your next big move, right? And it doesn't have to be like a moving of a house. I think you're thinking about the next big it thing, right? Because again, the other thing is, remember how we said 10s are the end and then 1s are the beginning. And then, 2 is just, how am I going to finance it? Also 2 with all the water is just kind of feeling gung-ho about the idea 1 minute, and then the next minute being, maybe I should wait 3 years, right? So you're kind of going up and down about it, but you are definitely at the ending of one cycle and you're looking towards the next, but you're in a very happy place right now. And Wow, guys, and look, you got, I don't know if you can see it, you got your little salamander climbing up that rod too, so you're going places, right? You're just figuring out your game plan. All right, but that was really wonderful, guys. I really liked that read. I knew this was going to be a fun one. All right, last deck. All right, let's look at our last salamander. And this is the Spacious Tarot. So let's go ahead and see, how does the Knight of Wands manifest in your life? Presently. Wow. And moving forward. Wow. Wow, we got a lot of energy here, guys. Okay, we got 2 knights there, too. Okay. So, wow, guys. Okay, so deck number 3. How does the Knight of Explorer of Wands? He's the Explorer of Wands. Now, wow, guys, I'm immediately seeing that in your past, you definitely had some kind of, sudden thing happen. You had some kind of event going on, because you got the Tower. And I love the Spacious Tarot because there's no humans. Everything is animal in nature. But you love it. You see, the Tower in this deck is those really carefully stacked rocks that that people balance for like Zen and mental clarity. And you see it's being hit by lightning, right? And what it is you don't know if that rock pile is going to topple or not. You get the feeling like it might. But and what it's done is, I think some kind of, you've in the past you've had some kind of events going on that has really worn you down, right? We had a tarot on the 9 of Wands not too long ago. I would highly suggest, if you get a chance, if you want to watch that read, just the beginning of it, not the whole video. But the 9 of Wands is, that beautiful, you see how there's one rose, right? That's kind of standing tall amongst all of the other, crossed wands, right? Light and dark, light and dark. And what it really means is that you've really held your ground. Like you've kind of been through the war. You've felt that there's been a breakdown of a lot of structures in your life. And I feel like it's the winds of change, right? There's been storms. I feel like you've had storms in your life, and there's a really great, there's a breakdown going on. And the thing about the Tower is that if you have a strong foundation, the foundation will remain for you to rebuild anew. And I'm kind of getting that vibe. I'm getting the vibe that, and again, this being your Explorer of Wands, your Knight of Wands, this is your sense of energy and the confidence of knowing I can go in and do. I think in the past you've really been through a lot, and I think you stuck it out. I think you're that flower that blooms in adversity. But I do also think that you've had a breakdown go around you, right? You've weathered a lot of storms, is what I'm seeing. The other thing is that it kind of fell like this, right? It's almost like the rose is standing tall amongst all the chaos, right? So I think you've weathered a lot of storms and you've been real strong. You've been real strong. But it really did wear you down. Now, what it is that was the past. That's where you're coming from. And what it is presently, and you got 2 knights too. Now, the first deck got 4 knights, which is unprecedented. I've never seen that before. I've never had that happen, all 4 knights out. But here you have the Explorer of Wands, and it's funny in that read too. The Knight of Cups came out right in the center. But I do kind of sense that. I'm almost getting, like, with this one, I'm feeling as if maybe there might have been some kind of breakdown where and again, this is the present, and the two explorers are both knights. I think there might be some kind of breakdown between either two brothers or siblings, or possibly two friends. Because we've got the Five of Cups, and the Five of Cups is that, broken cups on this side and two standing cups on that side, and everything's all gray, right? And this is the Explorer of Cups. This is the Knight of Cups. This is the person who brings their emotions. And this is between you, right? This is between you. Let me just get a little bit of clarification. Please clarify. Oh, the moon. Yeah. I'm also seeing a little bit of the Four of Wands and the Emperor. The moon is definitely just, it's emotional confusion. I definitely think that there's been some kind of breakdown here. There's been some kind of breakdown between you and another person that's equal to you, someone that you consider to be like a brother or a sister, someone who's of equal strength. But you're definitely, I'm getting the feeling like you're the more kind of fiery go-getter type. The other person's a little bit more sensitive. Again, I love the cups because they're koi fish, right? This is someone who knows how to swim deep, but I do think that, yeah, there's some kind of situation going on with you and an Explorer of Cups that you're almost kind of regretting. You feel a little bit, everything feels a little bit murky. And again, with all the purples being on this side and this being kind of a very gray, I think that you do have a little bit of, you might be seeing the situation with a little bit of pessimism, because that's unlike the Explorer of Wands, right? Like these two cards, the moon is about being very, very murky, like not knowing where to go, and then the Five of Wands is feeling like remorse, like looking back at what's broken. Now, but the only thing that I can think of is that, remember how we said the Explorer, the Knight of Wands charges forth, right? He does what he needs to do. And it's entirely possible that maybe in charging forth with your own goals, you might have alienated yourself, or might have had a little bit of a falling out with someone that is more sensitive, because that's the other thing we said about wands, fire and water, right? Sometimes, wands can be a little bit brusque, and sometimes that can come across as a little bit insensitive to the more sensitive types. But I'm sensing there's a distance here, because the other thing that you see is that you see that there's a river in between you, right? There's a river in between you. And the Knight of Wands is on one side, and the Knight of Cups is on the other. So, yeah, I do think, I'm getting a sense like there might be a little bit of falling out here. And I feel like you might be having a little bit of regret about it. You might be. The other thing is that the moon is kind of turning within. I'm beginning to wonder if you questioned your own motives. Like you're questioning whether or not you were too impulsive. But the other thing is that you also know that you have really positive goals ahead of you. That's the other thing that I'm getting. It's like, yes, you might have trampled over somebody. You might have accidentally kind of stepped on somebody's toes, but you had a reason for it. But again, remember how we talked about how the Knight of Wands, he's a go-getter, but he's not really taking into consideration other people all the time. Sometimes he'll charge forward and not realize that he might be dragging someone else with him, or running over someone in the process. And I don't think it's intentional. It's not meant to be cold or callous. Definitely not. It's just exciting, and you're going after your goal. It's almost like having tunnel vision. vision, right? Okay, look, this is what I want, let me go get it. And when you go get it, and again, this is a more sensitive person, but I do see you being on different sides of the river, and the broken cups side is with the Knight of Cups, because the Knight of Cups is the one who brings cups, right? And here they are broken. So yeah, presently you might have had a little bit of a falling out with somebody. It might have been because you were a little bit too ambitious. You might have got a little ahead of yourself, not in a bad way, because as we move forward, you know, we'll definitely, get to that in a minute, but you actually have a very pretty future here going forward. But I think, I think that the other thing about it is that you would have never, the other vibe that I'm getting from this is that I think that you're also, the reason that you come across as a little bit of a tough cookie, the reason that you might have accidentally, again, I get this a lot with a lot of fire types. They don't realize how far their flame, they don't mean to burn anybody. They just, sometimes they flare up, and if you're too close, you'll have your eyebrows taken off. But the other thing about this too is that you see how much fire is around him, right? It's almost like this little aura bubble of like, can't touch this. And the thing that I'm seeing is that I think you developed that, you wouldn't, the Nine of Rods is a very tough card. It's very resilient. And I think you learned how to be tough in your past because you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot of dramatic change. You've been through a lot of chaos. So your defense mechanism is to charge forward, right? And that's always served you well. That's how you survive. But, that's not how everybody else operates. Remember how we talked about the Knight of Cups? His horse has 3 feet on the ground. He's not running towards anyone. He's not... So sometimes your approach, and again, these both being explorers, your approach might come across as a little too tough, and sometimes there will be casualties. But moving forward, the future is not bad. You got the Guardian of Cups, which is the Queen of Cups. You got the Seven of Swords, which I think is a really neat depiction in this deck too. Seven of Swords. And you got the Hermit. So I'm thinking that you did have some kind of fiery experience. You really went after something, but it might have resulted in a little bit of heartbreak, a little bit of regret or remorse. You might have accidentally alienated yourself from someone, or you might have caused. It might have resulted in some kind of third-party situation, and it doesn't, that doesn't have to be people involved, because right now I'm seeing two knights, but it definitely separated two people who were very close to each other, who cared about each other. And what I'm seeing moving forward is I do see you getting into an energy of understanding. I think moving forward, you're learning from this experience, because that's the other thing we talked about. I mean, sometimes you have to be that reckless person to kind of, to eventually develop and learn. But the one thing that I do see is that the Seven of Swords, and what's interesting about this deck is you see how the shadow of the 6 swords are so straight, and the shadow of the 1 sword is all kind of like, so the one thing that I can kind of see is that I think you're almost reflecting on what it's like to be the Knight of Cups. Like you're reflecting on how to be that gentle energy, that emotionally stable energy. Because the other thing is that the Queen of Cups is she's a very nurturing force. She's a mature energy, right? But the one thing about the Seven of Swords is you see it's standing apart, right? It's standing apart. it's taking your own opinion and, you know, going against the grain. It's stepping away from what everybody else is telling you to believe. And remember, we said that that's what the Knight of Wands does. He doesn't conform, right? He doesn't, you know, he's not. He does what he wants to do. He doesn't do what other people expect him to do. And but in between this, what I'm seeing here is that you have a lot more of that purple, because the thing is, you got purple here, you got purple here, and then you got purple in the future. You got the Hermit, which is such a beautiful card. It's kind of like, I think what you're gonna do is you're gonna take in the future. You again, the, you know, being a fire Knight of Wands is a dynamic experience. It's a living life. It's going out there and doing the things, right? But after you do the things, and sometimes when you have your bumps and bruises, and you know, you rough, you tumble, you fall off the horse, moving forward, you're gonna think, you're gonna take some time out to think about. You're gonna take some time to think about what happened in this situation. You're going to take some time to think, you know, what it was about the situation that made you deviate, that made you charge forward, that made you want to be the lone wolf, right? And I think it's going to result in a lot of emotional maturity for you, because that's the other thing the Queen of Cups is definitely good for, is that you're going to come out of this valuing these cups, right? You're going to come out of this valuing the cups that were broken. So I do think that your night, you know, all the other nights were really great, but I think this has been a little bit of a learning experience for you. I think it was the adventure that really kind of it taught you something. I do kind of think that it might have kind of hit you a little bit, and I think it did. It tested your independence, and it tested your sense of strength. But I think what it also did is that it got you thinking about what you believe in, like what's important, but also, you know, how to balance that without hurting anyone. And again, I really don't know. This could potentially be that another person really kind of hurt you, right? Because I see that you really kind of, you've been, this really kind of threw you for a little bit of a loop, right? There's a lot of thinking going on here, right? There's feeling about the past and what happened, and feeling kind of lost and trying to find where to go next. But you know, the Seven of Swords is really about, you know, it's the Seven of Swords is definitely about having feelings that are not in line with the rest of the group, right? And that's okay to have. That's okay to have. It just almost means that you have to kind of separate yourself. But I do think that your experiences, having gone through that or having dealt with that, you've really come out of it a lot more of a mature person. You've come out of it a lot more of a mature person. And, you know, the just one last interpretation is that if this is more of a romantic kind of spread, you know, maybe you tangled with the Knight of Wands, and, you know, and had a little bit of remorse. You know, it was exciting, but if anybody did, you know, kind of sneak away, it definitely gave you a lot of perspective. And the other thing that's really beautiful about the Queen of Cups is that she always has abundance for herself. Her cup always overflows, right? You always have enough emotion for yourself. And, you know, the Queen is not going to be trumped by the Knight of Wands, right? Right? She's a queen. So, but that is definitely the energy that you're going into, right? You rise above, you know, this kind of, you rise above heartbreak, and you know, it just makes you emotionally stronger. It makes you even better. So the experience makes you, you know, gives you a higher understanding, and makes you even more emotionally strong. So, wow, guys, that was a real powerful one. Oh gosh, I should have known with the knights, right? But it's definitely a dynamic card. I hope you enjoyed. If there's any insights that you have, I know I always end up looking back at the video and go, oh gosh, why didn't I say this or say that? But, you know, so what is your interpretation of the Knight of Wands? What do you think? Is there anything that you think when you see that card, and how do the images make you feel? But I hope that you have a good rest of your week. I will be posting the weekly energy card reading on Saturday. I hope you can join me then, and I'll catch you later. Bye.